Let's begin. Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. It's time to get on the terror train, to Christmas Town, that is. So grab a cup of holiday beer and get ready for a little story that Doughboy420 likes to call The Christmas Train. The Hughes family had a standing tradition of doing something new and Christmas-related every year for the holidays. The things that they liked, they would collaborate into an annual tradition, and the things that they weren't too keen on, they decided not to do again the following year. They went and looked at Christmas lights around the neighborhood, they baked cookies as a family, and they even went to a Christmas-themed amusement park one year, but they decided it was too far away and far too expensive to turn into an annual tradition. But this year, they had something brand new planned. It was so brand new, in fact, that it was a brand new thing for everybody. A new attraction had opened up a little ways north of their home in northern Washington state. It was a Christmas train that would take them out to a little Christmas town built in the woods where the kids could sit on Santa's lap and everyone could enjoy some hot cocoa and cookies. Everyone got to go home with a Christmas tree as well. They'd all heard of other such train rides down near Mount Hood in Oregon, and closer around Yakima, Washington. However, both were a bit farther away than they were willing to travel for a train ride to get a Christmas tree. They still had to haul it all the way back to their house after all, and they didn't want to travel over 200 miles to do it. They bought tickets online and made their trip out to a newly erected building in the wilderness of northern Washington. The road twisted and turned along evergreen-covered mountain trails. It was a beautiful sight to behold for the family of four. Jeremy Hughes drove their family van. His wife, Mariah Hughes, rode next to him, smiling out the window. Their two children, 15-year-old Kenny and 8-year-old Bobby, rode in the back. Kenny was listening to music with earbuds, and Bobby was playing the next big YouTube craze video game on his tablet. They finally came across the starting point of the Christmas train. It was a beautiful new building, nestled in the woods. It was a large log cabin that contained a gift shop and ticket booth inside. There were snow globes, Christmas ornaments, and all sorts of various holiday-related objects in the gift shop, along with several train-related trinkets. Red and silver garland and lights were hung around the shop and along the covered area where people waited for the train. It was a warm winter thus far, and it was just the start of December, and there was little to no snow on the ground outside. Jeremy picked up the tickets that they had purchased online, and together the family climbed aboard the Christmas train for the ride through the forest to the destination that they had set up for Santa to meet with the children. "This place is already so beautiful. I can't wait to see what's further on," Mariah said with a smile as she took her seat at the end of the first inside train car, the warmest of the three. There was one outside car, one inside car, and one inside car with large open windows with a bed train car just to hold the Christmas trees that everyone would bring back. A short while passed before a woman climbed on board to make the announcements with a microphone attached to her shirt. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome aboard the grand opening of the Forest Train to Christmas Post. These tracks have been newly renovated and are in tip-top condition, but before recently, these tracks have been shut down for decades. They weren't used very often, so they closed them down. However, now that everything's been repaired, replaced, and cleaned up in shipshape, we'll be able to see things that haven't been seen by anyone in a very long time. I promise you, there are some amazing things to see. So, keep a lookout, everyone. And without further ado, enjoy the ride." The older woman spoke with the joy of a child. Everyone cheered, and the train's engine began to chug along, pushing the train into motion through the mountain forest. The family all looked out of the window where they were seated on either side of the car. Mariah and Bobby looked out the left side, while Jeremy and Kenny stared out the right. The scenery passed by beautiful evergreen trees, with fields filled with cows, horses, and even llamas and alpacas. All of them were happily trotting through the fields. "Put your tablet down and look out the window," Mariah scolded her son. "Okay," young Bobby replied, setting his little handheld computer aside and began watching the gloriousness outside the window. "We'll be coming up to a bridge soon. Make sure to have a peek out the window, or you can feel free to travel between the cars if you wish. Wherever you think you can get the best view," the woman with the microphone pinned to her Christmas sweater spoke once again. "Hey, you guys want to go up to the outside car and have a look?" Jeremy asked his family, and everyone agreed. Even Kenny reluctantly relented. The four of them got up and made their way out by the seats, toward the outside car at the end of the train where they had all boarded by the engine. Several pictures and paintings were lined upon the walls of the train car, pictures of old trains and the construction of the tracks, all in black and white. There were pictures of Santa Claus, and the most odd and out-of-place thing was a large sign that read, "Don't feed the Sasquatch." It had a typical outline of Bigfoot, made famous by the video footage released in the late 1960s. They thought it odd, but they remembered that there were actually several laws in Washington state that made it illegal to hunt a Bigfoot, and they remembered how common sightings of them around here actually were. "What's that?" Bobby asked. "That's a Sasquatch, you dweeb. Bigfoot, Yeti, you know," Kenny said, with the tone of, "Duh, everyone knows that." "Oh, why is that here? Do Bigfoot celebrate Christmas?" Bobby asked. "No, I don't think so. Well, maybe, I don't know," Mariah said with a laugh. From the outside car of the train, one could see the glorious forest and the river running down into a small ravine beside the train tracks. The river soon bent around toward the train. Then they were going over a wooden bridge that allowed for a beautiful view of the rapids below. "Oh, wow," little Bobby said with enthusiasm and joy. "It's amazing, huh, bud?" asked his father. Bobby simply nodded his head with swift vigor, enjoying the scenery. The family enjoyed the cool air of the outside car, balancing steadily with the swaying of the train, holding on to whatever was available to remain standing. The sound of the train screeched along the tracks, along the thudding sounds of each railroad tie and various picked-up rocks from beneath the train. After some time of watching the forest go by, the family decided to take a trip to the opposite end of the train where the open window car was located. They passed over wooden ramps that connected the train cars together and walked past their previous seats into the back of the train. However, as they were passing by the window where they had originally sat, young Bobby stopped for a moment and stared out the window. "What's up, bud?" Jeremy asked his son, concerned for the sudden distance. I saw a man, a furry man," Bobby said with a bit of confusion as to what he had seen. "What?" Jeremy asked. "I saw a furry man back in the woods out there," he answered. "No way, dude," said Kenny. "Maybe it was a Bigfoot," Mariah said with a happy gasp before she hurried to her sons along to the open window car. Bobby was happy that perhaps he had seen the famous cryptid, but continued on with his day. When the family got to the open window car, the open forest had made way for some stone walls covered in moss, and then, eventually, when there was darkness as the train passed through a tunnel in the woods. The sounds of the screeching and clacking of the train echoed through the man-made cave in the mountain. The darkness of the tunnel soon gave way to sunlight on the other side, and then, a little further on, was the Christmas Post village, where Santa and some of his elves were sitting and waiting to hear what each child wanted for Christmas. Everyone spilled off the train and made their way down the ramp to the little Christmas village that the workers had set up. There were typical wooden backdrops of lollipops and candy canes, snow-covered houses that looked like gingerbread houses. There were also baskets of various random toys that sat next to Santa and a covered fireplace. There were also large thermos coolers with spouts where people stood by to hand out hot cocoa, hot cider, and cookies. Finally, there were dozens of fir trees all set up, lined along a fence for people to take home with them. The Hughes family waited their turn in each line. Jeremy and Kenny waited for food and drink for everyone. Mariah and Bobby waited in line to sit on Santa's lap. After waiting a few minutes, it was finally Bobby's turn to sit on Santa's lap.
Ho, 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 ho. Now, what would you like me to bring you for Christmas, young man?
Santa asked in his usual jolly tone. Bobby answered him with a string of various video games that were popular on the internet, but none of which Mariah had ever heard of. Afterward, he grabbed a small orange and blue foam football as his complimentary gift, as Jeremy and Kenny joined him with hot drinks and cookies in hand. The sugar cookies were delicious, and the hot drinks helped to warm the Hughes family, but it quickly came time to select a tree.
I like this one,
Bobby said, rushing over to one of the trees.
We can't get that one. It's all empty on one side. See? No branches.
Jeremy replied, showing his son the tree's bald spot.
I think we should get this one,
Mariah said with a smile.
I agree. Well, looks good, Jeremy replied warmly.
After the tree was selected, one of the workers loaded it onto the bed train car, and the Hughes family then also boarded the train, making their way back to their seats in the warmest car of the train. After a short while, the train's steam whistle gave off 2 loud toots to signal that the train would be departing the Christmas Post village and would be heading back into town. With that, everyone was on their way. The train began to move once again, and the familiar sound of metal wheels screeching along the tracks once again filled the air. The train chugged along and eventually came across the tunnel, where the light gave way to darkness. However, instead of returning to the light, the train stopped mid-tunnel.
What's going on?
Bobby asked, a bit uneasy.
I don't know, but
I'm sure it's okay, bud, Jeremy said to his son.
No need to be scared, everyone. It just appears that while we were visiting Santa, a couple of trees fell across the tracks at the other end of the tunnel. No big problem. We have some workers out there right now working to clear the tracks so that we can get you home. It'll only be a few minutes. Sorry for the inconvenience, folks,
the kind woman announced over the train's intercom before the sound of chainsaws could be heard cutting up the fallen trees outside.
See, bud, it's all good,
Jeremy said to his son with a smile. But it wasn't all good. This act of reassurance, followed by a blood-curdling scream of terror from near the front of the train, and this man's fearful scream preceded a different kind of shriek, one that was like a low, grunting howl that echoed through the tunnel. It sounded like a cross between the howl of a coyote and the growl of a bear. Bobby's eyes began to tear up as he curled into a ball, in fear of what was in the darkness outside the train.
It's okay, honey,
Mariah said, holding her son tightly in a desperate attempt to comfort and protect him, but in reality, she too was completely terrified. Then, different sounds began to blast through the tunnel, sounds of things thudding against the sides of the roof of the train. This was followed by several large rocks smashing through a few of the train's windows, covering passengers with glass and causing a whole new chorus of screams.
Please stop, go away,
Bobby yelled in fear.
It's all right, dude. I won't let anything happen to you,
Kenny said to his little brother, breaking from his normal cocky attitude to help his sibling. But just like everyone else, he too was absolutely terrified of what was happening. Suddenly, all the people that were seated outside came rushing into the closed train car where the Hughes family was. Some of them were wounded and bleeding due to being pummeled with stones. The train then began to rock back and forth on the track so violently that people were thrown from their seats. Others who were standing were knocked off balance, only to come crashing to the floor. Bobby looked out of the train window and into the darkness. He was soon forced to recoil once again in fear as an angry, human-like face appeared out of the shadows. It wasn't human at all. It was something much larger. It was something much more primal. The thing then gave a large thud on the side of the train, right next to where Bobby was seated, causing the entire train to rock from the force of the creature's fist punching into the side of the train car. Different variations of grunts and growls came from outside as more thuds and bangs echoed from within the tunnel.
Hold on, everyone. We're gonna try and push past this, the woman yelled in fear over the intercom as the train began to move again, forcing its way into the fallen trees in an attempt to escape. The partially sawed trees gave way after a bit of force, and the train was able to pass by, accompanied by the sounds of trees scraping along the sides of the train as it passed between them. As the train made its way into the light once again, Bobby looked out the window to assess the situation, and he saw something that he would never forget. A group of 4 hair-covered, bipedal creatures were standing amongst the trees off the side of the tracks. 2 smaller ones and 2 larger ones. The smaller ones were about the size of an average 6-foot-tall human, but others stood well over that, towering over the smaller ones. One of the larger ones appeared to have a fat, rounded belly. The train never made another trip down those tracks. The entire incident was blamed on bears, but the Hughes family knew differently. Later in life, Bobby would realize exactly what happened on that day during the last train ride for this Christmas train. Those aboard the Christmas train had trespassed into the home of these creatures, and they were just trying to protect their family.
Well, seems like they got out of there just in the nick of time before the next train came. The pain train, that is. But if you're following tracks right down the line to more gore galore, make sure to stop in again next Saturday. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday. Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.